Hey, what's up, Facebook? What's up, brothers? Happy Friday. Welcome to Man Up Friday with your gracious host, Mike the Mentor. Drum roll. That didn't work very good. Anyways, hey, I want to welcome you to Man Up Friday. We got a lot of content to cover. We're in part two of the all alone wound, which every man suffers from at one time or another. So we're going to talk about how we fix that, right? Practical ways to fix that in our lives. So quickly before we get started, if you're new to this page, welcome. If you're watching the replay, welcome as well. So this page was started because of where I've been in my own life, right? As a man, my father was in and out of my life at a young age. So I really never learned firsthand what it meant to be a man, what it meant to be a good father, a good husband. My dad really wasn't any of those things, unfortunately. And that's a different story for a different time, and you can find videos of me discussing that on this page. So I say all that to say, thinking back on my life, how did I make it? Right? Well, did I do it all by myself? No, I didn't do it all by myself. And God revealed to me some things. And one of them was, well, maybe it's not obvious, but it's God's grace. If it wasn't for God's grace, I wouldn't be here. I mean, I wouldn't be alive. I just wouldn't. I've had too many near-death experiences where I should be dead, and I'm not. And the second thing is I had mentors in my life where I could learn secondhand how to be a good man. So those were mentors in books that I was reading, right, about people who overcame situations much like mine, if not worse, and they were able to make something out of their lives. They ditched the victim mentality and made a choice to do something with the deck that they were handed in life, right? And I had men in my life, physically, whether it was coaches, whether it was fathers of friends, whether it was older guys in my neighborhood who saw something in me and held me to a higher standard, right? And spoke vision into my life. They planted these seeds in me that have sprouted, and I am who I am today because of every man, I'd fair to say good and bad, that's come in my life before, because I've learned from all of them. I've learned important lessons from the good ones, and I've learned vicariously from watching the bad ones crash and burn. Hey, thanks, Dave. I appreciate that, man. You're a good man too, brother. So that's kind of my story in a nutshell. That's kind of why I started this page, because I want to take those same seeds that were planted in me and plant them in others. So let's jump into tonight's content as we're getting started here. I always encourage you, if you journal, grab a journal. If you, got your phone, take out your phone, take some notes, because something's going to speak to you tonight. And the crazy thing is your mind is going to start to work on that over the next couple of days. And you're going to want to be able to reflect back on some notes as you work through some of these things, because it's impossible to go through life without picking up some kind of baggage. And these wounds that we've been talking about over the last couple of weeks affect all men on some level or another. And until we're willing to look at our past, right, and deal with those things, we can't move forward and live out our full life. So just some encouragement there. So let me share my screen here in a second. All right. Okay, let's see. All right, here we go. So this is the all alone wound part 2. Different picture this time. So this is a picture of me and my two best friends from high school. The big man in the middle there is Justin, and the guy there, the suave, debonair, and the glasses to the left is TJ, and that's his mother, right down there between us. And TJ lives on a lake, and this was from I think 2 summers ago, when we all just got together to hang out, get the families together, and just grill and do some boating and stuff. So the reason I chose this picture is because, right, we've been talking about the importance of brotherhood and having good friends in our lives, and these two guys are great friends. They've been with me through thick and thin. They were the first two guys to call me when my brother committed suicide. They were the first two guys that were waiting for me when I made that 45-minute drive home to my grandpa's and pulled in the driveway. These guys are good brothers, and I've been fortunate to have a lot of good brothers come in and out of my life at various seasons. But these guys, they've been there since the beginning, and I'm just fortunate to have friends like that. So the All Alone Wound Part 2. So a quick recap on last week. I'm going to just fly through this so we can get into tonight's stuff. So our mantra for the past 2 weeks is life is a team sport, right? There's no such thing as a self-made man. Now, that doesn't mean you don't have to do things by yourself at times. You don't have to pull yourself up from your bootstraps, but no one goes through life totally isolated and alone. You're not one person on an island your entire life. I know sometimes it seems like that, but that's not the way that life works. And society saying that these people are self-made men is just not true. So there's 3 significant relationships that bless and energize a man's life. One, the alarming mentor, right? We talked about every man needs a mentor. Doesn't matter what age you are, there's somebody who's further ahead in their life journey that has a lot of knowledge and a lot of wisdom that can offer that up to you, right? And keep you from your blind spots and point out potential roadblocks no matter what stage of life you're in. They recognize your talent and believe in you. The next person is the side-by-side friend, right? You can't do life alone. We've talked about that. And this person will tell you what you need to hear, not what you want to hear. Those two guys in that photo that I just showed, when I was gonna get married, and I was in that relationship and I wasn't myself, those guys were quick to call me to task and to point that out, and to have me to basically verbally slap me and shake me awake. So we all need friends like that. Then there's the needy protege, right? Like, we all have something to offer to the younger generation. It doesn't matter how old you are. You have life experiences that you should be passing on to those who are coming up next, and not keeping to yourself. And you may think, oh, well, what do I have to offer? Why would someone ever want to listen to me? Because I guarantee that there's someone that wants to soak up your knowledge and your wisdom, because just as you want to know what's coming ahead in your own life and how you can better navigate those seasons of life, they too want to know that, and they too see where you're at in life, and they want to be able to get there, right? So you're able to give them kind of a roadmap and help them out with that, right? You promote someone else's welfare. You're helping a young man succeed. And then we define the all alone wound. We said it's a social, emotional, and spiritual loss caused by the lack of healthy male camaraderie that results in loneliness and discouragement, foolish behaviors and blind spots, short-sighted masculinity. And then most men today are lonely. They know a lot of men, but no one knows them, right? And just think about that, right? How many people know your shame? How many people know your guilt? How many people know, like, your bucket list, or your true desires, or what you really love, what really motivates you? And it's not that a lot of people need to, but if you have nobody that knows these things, that you can, if you could only make one phone call and you were in need, and you have no one comes to mind of who you could call, that would absolutely be there for you, then you need to find that person, right? And tonight we're going to talk about what that kind of looks like. All right, and then the difficulty of this wound, right? It's one of inattention and overattention. Oh, that's from last week. Doggone it, I did that again. I forgot to take that off that slide. That's the mother wound. All right, my apologies. So tonight, right? First point is every man benefits from the company of other men, right? We're tribal in nature, right? Science and anthropology, it shows that about humans, and we've talked so far as we've gone along this journey how manhood can only be bestowed from one man to another, right? Just like womanhood can only be bestowed from one woman to another. You know, my daughter's 8. This is kind of crazy. My wife calls me on the phone, is like, hey, I'm picking up some stuff at the store. I think we need to buy MK some bras. I can't believe she's getting to be that age. And I just told my wife, I'm like, well, you know that better than I would, right? So, I mean, that's a crude example, but like I could not bestow the womanhood on my daughter, right? Another woman has to teach a younger woman what that looks like and give that to them. All right. So first we got the friendless American male, right? And we just talked about this a little bit ago. We're more connected than ever today, but there's less connection. And we talked about this last week. I think it was science says like your brain can only handle like I think it was like 400 relationships. It's some number like that. So like you go on Facebook and you see these people with like 5,000 friends and stuff like that. The word friend is being redefined. They're not friends. They're just associates, right? People that if you pass them by, they may recognize your face. You may recognize their face. They may know your name. You may know their name. But you don't really know anything about them, right? Well, you may know, that they drive a certain car because they post car pictures on their profile, but there's no real connection there, right? You don't know what they care about. You don't know what makes them mad. You don't know what drives them up the wall. You don't know what they really yearn for out of this life. And we need those type of things, right? We need to be able to go below the surface and build real relationships as men. I mean, that's how we were created as human beings, to have relationships, not to wander the earth like zombies. All right, so there's a significant downside to isolation, and this is a huge warning. And I think that it's definitely, well, I don't know science on this, but just logic and wisdom, I would say that it's definitely more significant for males than it is for females to isolate. And you got to remember, you might not know this if you're a believer, or if you're not a believer, but there's a lot of wisdom obviously in the Bible, and the Bible talks about the devil comes like a lion, right, to steal, kill, and destroy. Now, if you watch lions hunt, they don't try to get a herd and circle this herd and attack four or five wildebeest at a time. No, they look for the one that's injured. They look for the one that's straggling behind. If none of them are straggling behind, they're going to attack the whole herd so that one splinters off, right? And then they're going to isolate that one, and then they're going to go in for the kill, right? And that's exactly the way the devil works. Is he wants to get you alone. He wants to put you in a position of isolation where you think you're the only person with that problem. You think that no one's ever dealt with this situation before. You can't see any way out of it, right? You're looking out at the world through a tiny little keyhole, and then he's going to tell you that you should feel shame, you should feel guilt, about what you've done, and how could anyone accept you? How could anyone forgive you? How could anyone love you? Those are all lies, right? And I was asked earlier this week, how do you hear from God, right? How do you know that what you're hearing is the voice of God? And this is a perfect time to be able to recognize that, because God's voice is going to come and it's going to encourage you. It's not going to put you down. It's not going to shame you, right? It's not going to make you feel guilty. There's going to be a righteous conviction, but that righteous conviction is going to be like, you're better than that. You were made for more. You don't have to make those decisions, right? Like those are the types of things that God's voice has said to me. So we have to be weary of isolation, because one, it's going to give us a warped perspective on life. When we're doing life all by ourselves, man, we have so many blind spots, and we develop this view where we put this bubble around us, and what we see is what we know, and what we know is what we think is right, and we have no outside perspective coming in to challenge that in a healthy way and make us aware of what's really going on. I think of my brother's story, right, in him committing suicide, and that's exactly what happened to him. Is he isolated himself. He came home from being expelled from school. He sat in his room and waited till my grandma fell asleep, right, and then he went, got my grandfather's gun, put it in his car, and then he drove to the parking lot of the high school, and he sat there all night. And I'm not talking about like 1 hour, 2 hours. I'm talking about all night. And this, it's crazy the length that God goes to show us that He loves us, right? What are the chances that my brother's best friend cuts through the high school parking lot at 11:30 midnight on his way home, right? Why that route? Why didn't he just go around? I mean, I don't know. But he cuts through, right, the parking lot, sees my brother sitting there in his car, and then tries to talk to him. Not once, not twice, like 3 or 4 times. But my brother just doesn't want to talk, right? My brother's trying to isolate himself. He's trying to be all alone with his thoughts. He's trying to stay in that little world that he's built around himself at that particular point, where he's just looking through this keyhole and only seeing this one certain thing is, I'm expelled from school, my life is over, what am I ever going to do? And then he's contemplating whether it's worth living or not, right? And his friend didn't know all this, and his friend wanted to honor and respect his wishes, so after that, his friend drove off, and then still my brother didn't do anything. Still he sat there in isolation, and my best guess is that he was fighting those feelings and those thoughts and those emotions that he was having at that time. So he drives to the front spot in the parking lot closest to the school, and he sits there all morning. So right, 6:30, 7 o'clock, maybe it's 7:30. School, is going to start, and here are all the other kids pulling their cars in and walking past my brother's car on the way to school, and hollering out his name and asking him if he's coming in, and him saying, yeah, I'll be in a little bit. Those final last minutes, probably contemplating as things raced through his mind about what he was going to do, right? But he was in isolation, and that's the point. And that's what happens when we isolate. We get that warped perspective, because I believe without a shadow of a doubt, if someone could have spent 5 minutes with my brother and would have found out what was really going on and would have been able to talk to him about it, that he wouldn't have did what he did. So the next thing, or the next significant downside to isolation, is we engage in loose living, right? We seek out unhealthy ways to meet healthy desires, whether it's alcohol, drugs, pornography, illicit affairs, all kinds of things, that don't go along with choices that promote a healthy and better lifestyle, right? We're self-destructing. And that only happens in isolation. Because when you have a strong brotherhood, when you have strong friends in your life, one, they're not going to let you go down that path, and two, you're less likely to go down that path because you have people that you can reach out to for support, and you know that they really value, care, and love about you, or and love you. The next thing is, isolation breeds the loss of motivation for the noble things in life. Right? There's no more drive to make yourself better. There's no more drive to uh, pursue, the love of your life. Right? Whether that's a woman, whether that's a dream or a goal that's been placed in you. And I think back on my own life, right, and some of the things that I've been through, and how when they first happened, right, like breaking up with a girlfriend and going and trying to isolate myself, but having friends reach out to me and say, hey man, what are you doing? Like, come on, come hang out with us tonight. Come shoot some hoops. Come watch a movie. Let's go do something. Right? There's just something about being around other people, right? Friends, that produces this energy, and you feed off that energy off each other, right? And it keeps you going, and it creates opportunities for you to be authentic. I think back to awesome times, in my late 20s when I got involved with this group of guys, and we would go and we would sometimes meet up and do things. And I remember this time where we were going to meet up and go bowling, and it kind of pretty much went nuclear at my house between me and my wife, and I just showed up. As kind of a last resort. I didn't really want to go because I didn't want to be pouty around these guys. But something told me I just needed to give it a chance, so I showed up, and they could obviously sense something was wrong with me, and to have them pull me aside and to talk to me about it and to really care about me enough to ask me what's going on multiple times, to press in, because I was putting up a little bit of a front, right, and then finally to be able to work through that situation with them. Just made me feel so much better, and it just restored my hope, right, and it gave me energy, right, because I wasn't isolating myself. And that goes along with this last point, right? When you're isolating, you have a loss of opportunities for much needed transparency. Transparency is the battering ram that breaks everything down. It breaks down the wall of shame. It breaks down the wall of guilt. It breaks down the wall of condemnation. When you're able to just come alongside a brother and say, hey man, I did this, or hey, this is what's going on in my marriage, or this is what's going on in my life, it melts away. It falls off. It can no longer can have root in you, because you've now brought that to the light, and when things are brought to the light, they have to be shown for what they clearly are, right? Which it could be a lie, it could be a misunderstanding that you have towards these emotions that you're feeling, right? It could be a multitude of things, but when you bring it to the light, there it is, and it no longer has any power. It's not this big scary boogeyman or situation or mountain or giant that it once was. It ends up being this tiny, tiny little thing that appeared to be monstrous, right? Or appeared to be bigger than what it actually was. And you don't get to see that until you bring it to the light. And now, I know that's easier said than done, and it takes a lot of courage to do that. But the truth is you have that courage inside of you. You just have to exercise it by opening your mouth, right? And you obviously got to use honor, and you got to use discernment in doing that. But if you've taken the time to build up a good support group of guys, of a brotherhood that you can trust, then you will have more of those opportunities to let go of those things. And I don't want to preach at anybody, but if your relationship with God is right, and that doesn't mean that you need to be doing everything perfect. That doesn't mean that you need to be following all these rules. Like, right, that's between you and God. But God is your father. And like a good father, if you go to him and you say, hey, I got this problem. This thing is bothering me. Will help me, Dad. Help me, Father. He's going to help you. He's going to help you deal with that situation, right? However that looks like. So I'll get off the preacher's pulpit on that one. Remember this quote right here, or this little saying: "Alone we can talk ourselves into anything." I mean, how true is that? How true is that? I'm sure we can all think of times where something has gone wrong, and we've isolated ourselves, whether it was in our bedroom, our car. I don't know what that looks for you. Maybe you went for a walk because you had to get out of a crazy situation, and you start talking to yourself, right? And it sounds like this: yeah, that's right. Like, I knew better than that. Or, they don't even know. I'm going to show them. Or, who needs them anyways, right? You start saying all these things that a lot of times aren't true, right? And you start reinforcing these things to yourself. And that's when we talk a lot about telling the truth, right? That's when you get back to lying to yourself. I don't need them anymore. Oh, that doesn't matter. That didn't hurt. Those things are lies. Yes, you do need them. Yes, it does matter. Yes, you do hurt, right? Isolation turns us into liars. All right, so now we're going to talk a little bit about what Scripture has to say. And this is important because most of these scriptures come from Solomon, who was considered to be the wisest person that ever lived. And it doesn't matter if you believe or you don't believe. That's not my point in sharing these things. My point in sharing these things is it's wisdom. They're true. It has no bias. It doesn't care what you've done. It doesn't care who you are. It's true. And you'll see that when we go through these. So the first one is Proverbs 18:1. It says, "He who separates himself seeks his own desire." Right? When we just talked about that, right? When you separate yourself from the brotherhood, when you separate yourself from friendship and from other people, you're going to naturally seek what you want to do. And in that space, what you want to do is not going to be what's best for you. The next one is Proverbs 18:24. "There is a friend who sticks closer than a brother." Man, I don't know how I get through, or how I would have gotten through some of the things that I went through in life if it wasn't for good friends. I think I shared a couple weeks ago my mother wound. I don't know what I would have done when my mom was chasing me across the field in the car if I hadn't been able to run over to my best friend's house at the time. I don't know what would have happened, how that would have escalated, how that would have turned out, right? I don't know what would have happened if when my brother committed suicide, if Justin and TJ weren't the ones that called me and told me what had happened. And not only told me what happened, but be the first people that I see when I get there, right? And even though I didn't want to believe that it was real, and they were very emotional and crying and trying to embrace me, I don't know what I would have done without that. Proverbs 17:17. "A friend loves at all times, and a brother is born for adversity." Right? How true is that? Right? A friend loves at all time, and a brother is born for adversity. And those two can be, friend and brother can be one and the same. Right? I say right a lot, don't I? Right. Proverbs 27:17. Right? There I go again, the old standby. "As iron sharpens iron, so one man sharpens another." It don't get no better than that. There's a lot of wisdom in that saying. You think about iron and what happens when iron hits another piece of iron and sparks fly. I mean, you can pull so much out of that. It's just ridiculous. And then this last one, right? 1 Samuel 20:17. Jonathan loved David as his own. And if you don't know the story behind that, you can definitely crack open a Bible and read that in Samuel. I'll give you just a 1 minute recap, right? David's been anointed the next king of Israel. The current king Saul, right, is, I keep saying right, is dealing with a lot of things. He wants to kill David. Jonathan is his son. Jonathan actually helps David in a lot of these situations escape Saul's wrath, and they form this brotherhood, this kinship that's extremely strong, and they share things with each other, that help David get through those crazy times. And I think of somebody in my own life, a brother that I got, whose name is Clay, that we haven't necessarily been all that close for a number of years, and then circumstance led us to being more reconnected, and doing some work together, and sharing life together. And even this is the cool thing, right? Even though we're on different parts of the spectrum in terms of beliefs on a lot of things, right? He's like a brother. He is a brother to me, because it doesn't matter what he thinks and what I think. Those are side things. We have each other's best intention in mind, and when we have conversations and we share about life, that's apparent. And those are the types of friends that I want in my life, and that's what I appreciate, and that's what I would encourage you to seek out. So, a little bit more here to go, and then we'll wrap it up. So, here's where the rubber meets the road, right? So, what can you do to foster better friendships, more brotherhood in your own life? Well, you need to learn the 3 keys to friendship. One is loyalty. If you're not loyal, no one's going to want to be a friend to you, right? If someone comes to you and they start to confide in you, and they open up to you, and then you turn around and you share what they told you in confidence with someone else, you're not being loyal. If you want to be a good friend, you have to be loyal. And that's just not only a good friend in life with another brother, that's a good friend to your spouse. And I myself have failed at that miserably at times. Faithfulness and common values. The faithfulness kind of goes along with the loyalty to that person. But you to have a good friendship, there's got to be some common values right there. There's got to be something that brings you together and creates that bond. And that could be as simple as, for me, a lot of the people that I've met in my life, and a lot of close friends that I've got, have come through basketball. Basketball or fighting. Those are the two ones. We either played basketball and became friends, or we fought and became friends, or we played basketball, and while we were playing basketball, we fought and became good friends. So you need those common values to establish a good friendship. And then you need encouragement. If you can't encourage each other, then you're not going to have a very good friendship, because encouragement is at the root of any good friendship. Because we're all going to go through struggles, we're all going to deal with hard times, and you're going to know who your friends really are when those people are there for you, or are there giving you a shoulder to cry on, and lifting you up and encouraging you to move on to bigger and brighter things. So the next thing you can do is you can reach out to other men. And this is going back to this thing we talked about earlier about having courage. It takes a lot of courage. It takes a lot of courage when you're feeling like SHIT, and you've done something right, and the devil is condemning you with the guilt and the shame, and everything that goes with it, to pick up the phone and to call somebody and say, hey man, I need to talk. I need you. This is going on right now. And I can't tell you how huge that is. To be that person for somebody else, and what an honor it is, that comes with that. But to have somebody who you can go to and who you can count on, as well, because it goes both ways. All right, and then you need to be able to have challenge men like you to meet regularly with you to get better, right? That whole iron sharpens iron thing. A core group of people that can come together and can surround you and be a part of your life, and help you do life. And that plays out in a lot of different things. And these are the ones, or some examples of ones that I've been in, right? A book club. Now, and I don't know, I'm kind of a nerd, a closet nerd. I like reading books. I like talking about things that nerdy things, I guess, or what people might consider nerdy things, more on the intellectual side. But you can foster great friendships over this one common thing. I know a lot of guys, they might have the NFL fantasy draft. Some guys it's cards. Some guys it's the weekly pickup game. Whatever opportunity that presents itself. So I would encourage you that whatever you're passionate about or whatever you like, that there are other men that have those same feelings, and you need to surround yourself with those men, and then certain friendships will grow out of that. Another good thing is the Bible study. I used to get together. I'm part of those now, but I'm thinking back, to when stuff was really starting to go sideways in my life. And it was these guys that I was in a Bible study with, along with my buddy Justin and at times TJ, that held me accountable, and we know that we didn't have to beat around the bush, or that it was out of love that we were challenging somebody in a certain situation, or to look at something a certain way. And then you got to have your E team, right? Your encouragement team, the guys that you can count on, that at a drop of a hat will have no problem, praying for you. Will have no problem saying, "Hey, let's go grab some coffee," or "Hey, let's go grab a bite to eat," and hear what's going on in your life and what you're dealing with, and then encourage you to keep on moving. I think of one brother who comes to mind right now, who's dealing with some stuff in his life and in his marriage, and he's reached out to me several times a week, just talking about, hey man, how do I keep going? How do I keep fighting this battle? It seems like it's impossible. It seems like it's too overwhelming. It seems like it's never going to work. And I wouldn't be his friend, and it would do him no good if I was like, yeah, you're right. Excuse me, it's not going to work. You should just give up on your marriage. But that's not the truth, and that's a lie. And all he needs to hear from me is that, hey bro, I'm sorry you're going through that right now. I understand, I've been there before. But the truth is that you can handle this. You will get through with this. Your marriage will work. You will keep pursuing your wife. You will keep trying to show her that you love her in a genuine way. You will keep speaking her love language to her. You will keep sacrificing what you want for what she wants, right? And this isn't just about you. This isn't just about your kids. This is about your grandkids. This is about your your great great grandkids. This is about the legacy that you're going to leave as a man. And man, that gets me fired up. And just for him to hear that, you know, totally changes his mindset. And that's all we need as guys, is to have somebody speak that truth into us so we can say, yeah, you're right. You know what? That's right. I'm going to keep fighting. The battle is worth it. So you got to have your E-team. And then you got to get real and share your heart. We talked about vulnerability. Nothing great is going to come out of this, or is going to happen, or you're not going to experience the tremendous breakthroughs in your life without being willing to be vulnerable and to share your heart. So once again, there's got to be honor in that, and there's got to be discernment. So you got to build an environment of trust, right, and safety first, and then you can start to be vulnerable with your heart, right? You owe it to yourself to find somebody that you can be safe with, rather than just running to the first person you see, or to somebody that you're not sure is a good friend, and to just emotionally puke all over them, right? And you can't approach it like that. So and then going with sharing your heart, right, is soul talks and needs. And what soul talks are, that's just a term describing, what's really going on inside of you. It's after you get past all the how's the weather, how are you today, like it's deeper than that. It goes back to you telling yourself the truth. Hey, this happened today at work, or hey, I'm dealing with this with my wife, or I have a friend, and they told me they were my friend, and this is kind of what's going on, and this is how I feel about it, and I don't know if I can keep going on in my marriage. I don't know if my marriage is worth fighting for. I don't know if I still love my wife. Like, the real you has to show up. You can't keep pushing him down. You can't keep holding him back, or bad things are going to happen. Because, like the Wolverine, or actually I would say it like this, like Hugh Jackman in the Wolverine movie, when he's in that tank of water, and they're pumping the adamantium or whatever that metal's called into him, right? And then he hears that they're going to kill him, and he snaps out of it, and he freaks out, and he jumps up out of the water, and he's like, "Rah!" And his muscles are all rippling, and he's angry. That's the guy that's going to come out and start killing some people if you can't get real about what's going on in your life and what's going on inside of you. And you keep lying to other people, and you keep lying to yourself. Flat out. It's going to be some serious Hulk rage that comes. And you got to be able to share your dreams, right? Like, what do you ultimately want to do with your life? What do you feel like you're called to do? What's your purpose in life? Without good friends in your life, those conversations never take place. Guess that's that. You got to be able to talk about your failures. I'm getting pretty good at that, I guess. I guess this helps, but I got no problem, because now I understand the freedom that comes with sharing my story and what I've really been through, and who I am. And I don't mean just the like, oh, my brother committed suicide. I'm talking about no, I did this to my wife. No, I did this in my marriage. No, I said these nasty things to this teacher all these years ago. Right? Like, being able to speak those things, they have no more control over me. They have no more power over me. And I'm not ashamed, because those things no longer identify me or no longer hold me back. So you got to have people you can talk about your failures. And then lastly, I think this is the last one, that you can get insight from. And that goes back to the whole blind spot thing. You don't know what you don't know. And there are other men who are further along in their journey, or have experienced things that you haven't, and you possibly will, or they've been through what you're going through that can give you insight into those situations. And then here's the last one. You can enjoy life together, right? There's nothing better than getting a bunch of guys together, watching a game, grilling some food, I don't know, going to the beach, going and playing some pickup basketball. You know, it just goes back to that energy, right? That energy that exists, that masculine energy that exists between guys that they feed off of. So that's the official part of tonight. That's done. But before you get out of here, because we've been on here a long time, I just want to leave you with a couple questions here for you to think about as you process this over the next week. The first one is, what impacted you the most this session and why? And I would encourage you to journal this down so you can reflect on it and come back to it. The second one is, what hinders you most right now from strong male relationships? And explain that, right? Like, why are you hindered by that? What's stopping you from getting a group of guys together and say, hey, every Thursday we're meeting at my house, and we're going to watch this video series, or we're going to read this book, and then we're going to talk about it. And then finally, what steps could you take right now to develop a real friend? And here's my last thought of the evening before I sign off. You can't have real friends in your life if you're not a real friend. So it has to start with you first. If you're a crappy friend, you're going to have crappy friends. But if you take the time to work on yourself and you're a real friend, and you develop those areas of your life that we talked about, right? Loyalty, faithfulness, all those things, right? You will be a good friend, and then you will have something valuable to offer another person, another man. You're going to be, it's attractive, right? They see something about you. They want to be around you. They want to get to know you more because of that attractiveness that happens with those things. So I know we went long tonight. I appreciate your time. I'm trying to give you guys good stuff. As always, I didn't say this at the beginning. This isn't my stuff. This comes from The Quest for Authentic Manhood by Robert M. Lewis, but it made such a huge impact on my life. How could I keep this a secret? How could I not share it with as many men as I know? And that is my goal right now. So every Friday at 9:15, we jump into this, and it's going to take us through the entire year, right? So my hopes is that on the other end of this, when we're all done, you're going to be a better man for yourself, for your family, a better husband for your wife, and a more productive member of society, because you've actually taken the time to think about these things that we talk about and to work through some of these blockages or some of these wounds that you may find yourself having to deal with. So be strong and courageous as you do that. I love you guys. If you need anything, you know how to get a hold of me. Other than that, start to enjoy your Friday night and your weekend. See you tomorrow for the Saturday shout out. Have a good night.